What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today, and with me have some more RPG horror stories. Surprise! Tale fan service! I'm sorry for the jump scare, but I couldn't resist. Anyway, let's get some RPG horror stories for today. Class advantage nerfed because it made a fight too easy. So I had a DM that liked to play World of Darkness and sometimes combine all the supernatural creatures into a kitchen sink setting to let the players play whatever they wanted. In one game, he had discovered a Highlander PDF made for World of Darkness and wanted someone to try it out. I volunteered. For the most part, the class works how you think it should. Decapitation needed to die, sensing out the Highlanders, weapon empowerment, etc. One of the bosses we had to stop with Zamitsi, I think I pronounced it right, Zamitsi, that was an artist who refined vicissitude, I think, to create the art. That's the first time the party had ever encountered the ability and had no idea what it was. As a frontline fighter, I try to get in close to at least tie them up enough for the less human party members to kill them. Now that's where a problem came into play. In a PDF that the DM approved, there's an entire paragraph dedicated to high vicissitude. I hope I pronounced it right. Doesn't affect Highlanders because our spirit and flesh are one, and I gotta look it up. I don't know how to pronounce this thing. Vicissitude. That's how you pronounce it. A change of circumstance or fortune, typically one that is unwelcome or unpleasant. Vicissitude. God, I feel my mouth. Vicissitude only affects flesh, making them immune to the skill. We can otherwise be affected by every other vampire power. So when I tell the DM that vampire trying to warp my arm has no effect, the game grinds to a halt because he refuses to believe that I'm immune, because that will make my character too overpowered in this fight. In the rest of the campaign, Eve decides to use other Zametsi. There are 6 other party members that can be affected by the ability, 3 of which are also frontline fighters. An hour of arguing later, the DM threatens to either have me make a new character or let the ability's effect hurt me like the rest of the party. That's after me pointing out that this is like taking away a paladin immunity to diseases because we are fighting a boss that used those to kill intruders. According to the DM, that's not the same because it doesn't make the paladin OP in that fight, because immunity to disease like being turned into a were-rat still gives the boss other options to hurt the paladin. I end up letting it happen, but this still feels like BS. Am I alone in this? When it comes to playing official material, whenever you have any sort of other like homebrewed or supplementary material introduced, yeah, that can cause a lot of nightmare and cause a lot of problems. You really gotta be careful what kind of supplementary material you introduce, whether it be World of Darkness, D&D, TTR, any TTRPGs and stuff. But if a specific selection that you have for your player character gives them immunity to something, then it gives them immunity to something. I don't know how to tell you, man. You gotta make a quick decision about that sort of thing. Either make it so it resists the damage or like does half damage and stuff or something, or just straight up just allow the immunity to happen and move on from there. I mean, just because it can't work on one character, it can work in every other character. Just gotta find something else other than vicissitude. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, dude. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing it right. Anyway, let's get to the next story for today. DM ruins game and group trying to emulate Critical Role. This was back when Critical Role had just started their second campaign. The group was the DM, me, and 4 other people. The DM and one of the players were really into Critical Role, to the point where the first half hour to hour in every session was just the 2 of them talking about Critical Role. Eventually, the DM starts introducing characters from the series, starts telling us what we should do, because they did that in Critical Role. Starts trying to copy Matt Mercer's particular DM style to the point I wasn't having fun and it felt like I had no agency and our actions in the game had no point, since he'd attempt to retcon things or ignore things to get a particular outcome. It's fine to like Critical Role or Matt Mercer's playstyle, but at the end of the day you have to remember that you're not building a game for Critical Role. You're making a game and running a game for your players and yourself. What they do in Critical Role is going to be much different than what everybody else's D&D experience is going to be, because there it's a show. It's a performance. It's there for entertainment. It's there for suspense, for everything. But your game doesn't have to be anything like Critical Role, and you don't need to emulate Matt Mercer or really anybody. Find your own style, find your own game, find your own flow, and also don't retcon people to try to force some sort of a Critical Role-esque scenario to happen. It's like expecting players to do point A, but they completely blow through everything completely. You don't even have a time to make a plan B, plan C, plan Z even. Expecting your players to do a specific thing for a specific plot point, it's almost like expecting them to read a script. D&D and TTRPGs don't have scripts, People have their own play agency, and they play the characters with the best judgment they possibly can. And they're gonna do things outside of the initial design that you have. Obviously, you want to have a plan B for this kind of thing, but never expect your players to go with a specific plot every single time. Eventually came to a head when one of the guys dropped out, and that was the push for me to say the same. I love playing, but I'm not a huge Critical Role fan, and I have no interest in blankly copying other people's stories. DM reacted badly and went on a tirade about how he's playing D&D properly. We were ruining the game for him, that one other player. Critical Role is not D&D. D&D is D&D. Seriously, what's wrong with some of these people's obsession with Critical Role? I get it. Show is really cool. It's really awesome. And a lot of people got inspired by Critical Role to try D&D. Maybe a lot of people got inspired by Matt Mercer to want to run their games. But the worst part that comes is expecting D&D to be Critical Role. D&D is not Critical Role. D&D is what it is at the table in that current moment. It's the in the moment, current moment kind of thing that makes D&D what it is the current session, the current players, the current plot, the current magical items, the current spells, the current characters, the current character moments. Something beautiful and incredible because everybody gets to contribute to a story together, like they're doing Critical Role as well. Except that one is broadcast for entertainment purposes. But at the same time, D&D is not Critical Role. D&D what's happening at your table at the current moment. Always remember that and make that beautiful moment of y'all playing together with your players, with your party, with everybody so much more special, but focusing on what it is, not try to emulate what something else is. Try to tell him that he is running the game for all the players except one, and she was getting clear favoritism because she was going along with it, attempting to recreate scenes from this series. Even tried to explain that Matt Mercer has his own style, he has years of experience, probably took lessons in acting and improv, has a team of people to help with writing, and that's his career. He just accused me of being jealous of Matt Mercer and not knowing what D&D really is. Saw his post on the Discord server not long after he was explicitly looking for people who watch and like Critical Role. Hope he found a group of like-minded people to play with. He was a great DM before he decided that Matt Mercer is the only standard of DMing. Wow, that sounds like a disaster. Like for real, the DM is just asking for a bunch of people that watch Critical Role, and probably the server's gonna be full, or the game is gonna be full of a bunch of Critical Role character wannabes. It's gonna be Jester but blank, or Scanlan but blank, or Grog but blank, and some sort of like a knockoff of characters. Probably most likely the problem players too. We've read a lot of stories about people playing like a Scanlan but more of a pervert, an actual sex creep, or Jester but more of a main character Mary Sue kind of character. We've seen a lot of stories about like people trying to emulate Critical Role characters in the worst way possible, and I think that's what DM is going to be getting at this point. So hey, good luck to the DM. But seriously, don't turn your games of D&D into trying to emulate Critical Role. Make it your own thing. Find your own style. Find your own characters, your own stories, your own stuff. It's at your table, so really make it your own. Really think about the characters and put in the good work to have fun with everybody, making a collaborative storytelling medium that is D&D, or really any TTRPG. Well, it works for any of them. Anyway, let's get to the next story for today. Finally happened to me. Okay, so I've been DMing for a while. This most recent Saturday was the first foray into being a player in ages. Let me tell you, it went badly. Obligatory story about formatting. I'm on my phone. I got invited to the server with one of my friends who's a player in one of my campaigns. Very cool guy. We get in, we're planning out a connected backstory for our characters, mingling, reading lore. The lore is where it starts getting weird. DM had his lore thing with half-elves where they age super slow and don't usually look their age until they're like 30 or 40. My character, we'll call him Warlock, was a half-elf, 19 years old, and I was basically told that he looks 13, that's just how the world works, which is less than ideal. But at the time, that was the only weird thing. Honestly, just thought it would give me more of an excuse to play up the spoiled brat aspect of my character. So then we get into this prologue thing. Session 0 was basically like an hour-long conversation beforehand, where the DM just spoke about world building. Maybe it's on me for not asking, but there was never any talk of what content Aaron might have been uncomfortable with. After that hour, we just get right into playing. Stuff was going decent at first. Basically, Warlock was the youngest son of a smaller noble family, and we started off with this large gathering of nobility where they were basically going around and having a job fair for magic users. Meant to be how the party meets each other. Again, not going so bad. There was one NPC that mistook Warlock for a girl, but like it was funny in the moment, so I didn't really think much of it. It got weird when the whole party as a group got together, and they went to try and speak to the other noble family to form some kind of a business partnership in order to have extra funding and access to magic items for their upcoming quest. They were all dragonborn. There was like negotiations and stuff going on, then it basically just sprung up with, yeah, for your end of the bargain, you need to sire a child from someone under our family banner because, I don't know, heirs and powers or some crap. So my character's a gay man, 100% not interested in women, at all. I'm trying to laugh it off like, no, thanks, but I do have sisters who could work out betrothal or something with one of them. But this dragonborn is simply not taking no for an answer. Less than ideal once again. Still thinking like, there's gotta be a plot point here somewhere, or this is just really weird. Could be a plot point, or could be just DM is running a weird fetishy kind of game, which, I mean, I don't know if it's really fetishy kind of game, just there's something weird about it in general. Does it have to be some sort of a proposal? Maybe they can set him up with somebody else, a young bachelor that basically is ready to go through. Maybe there's a cousin in your family that could be used for that sort of thing. I don't know. It just feels really weird to like ham-fist your character into this position. A gay elf? Gotta make him marry a woman. A thing to note is that Warlock is very unhealthily attached to his fiend patron. Like, genuinely he believes this demon is the only person that cares about him. Have him step aside and talk with his patron, thinking the DM might, you know, follow the outline I've given for the demon's personality. Nope, the demon just says, you have to do it or I'm going to leave. I'll admit, I probably should have realized by this point this wasn't going anywhere I was comfy with. However, I was still just hoping this would lead to an actual plot and maybe not be terrible. Warlock panics, of course, because he has abandonment issues, odd they ass. No choice but to agree. Is there a reason why the player character has to like marry for somebody else to like give you magical items and stuff? I mean, I understand, you know, the whole royal families do the royal family things, but there gotta be another way to do this without forcing a player into a marriage directly, especially if they gotta marry somebody they're not into. Like if the player doesn't consent to the whole thing, why try to force them? Why not find an alternate solution where everybody can be happy and enjoy their time? Anyway, let's see how this ends. So we fast forward to the banquet thing that's entirely centered around this little gay boy needs to knock a girl up tonight. I make it very clear in character, at least, that Warlock is not comfortable with any of this. Like he's getting crap-faced, he refuses to talk to anyone, he's hiding under the table, he's just not having a good time. But the DM barely wants to pay attention to any of the other players, so the misery continues. Generally gets to the point where I'm just having him blind pick up one of these maidens. DM was so weird about calling all of them maidens, it was really creepy. I'm thinking we can just have one terrible fade to black, that'll be it. No, this random woman NPC the Warlock had to sleep with then says the next morning that they'll have to keep doing this as much as possible until she's certain she's properly seated. Direct quote. Then tries a guilt trip with a whole, do you hate me? When my character is less than enthused by the idea. Still, barely any attention has been given to the other characters. We called it there, but just the yikes. So suffice it to say, I fully learned my lesson. No D&D is much better than bad D&D. If any YouTubers want to read this, please, that would be very cool. Well, there you go. But I do agree with you, no D&D is better than bad D&D. And DMs trying to force these sort of romantic things and stuff is just strange. We had a couple of stories where there was supposed to be like a forced romance, marriage, even banging and stuff. It just doesn't sit right to me. It just doesn't seem okay. Could be other ways that players could progress the storyline without forcing somebody to bang the princess. Also, why does it need to be continued again and again until properly seated? Like, what's the point for it? It feels like some sort of a weird fetish setup. You know what it feels like? It doesn't feel like a plot point for like a D&D game. It feels like a plot point for a porn video. That's what it feels like porn video or hentai or something. And I think at that point, if it sounds a little bit like a hentai, then it's probably a fetish game and you should probably leave it. Just not played whatsoever. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.